Hey, it's all with another video, and today I'm going to do a little bit more coverage on some of the cool things that have come in this most recent build of the Tides of Vengeance PTR for the Battle for Azeroth expansion. The thing that I'm really excited about this particular one, because this involves Mr. Saurfang, our favorite High Warlord, who is, well, there's a lot going on with this one. This video is full of spoilers, potentially really big ones that are going to shape the future of this expansion, or at least the narrative of this expansion, because there might be some really cool implications here. But keep in mind that I'm speculating. This very easily could fall apart, and the story itself could be a lot more simple than we think, which is kind of the usual route that Blizzard takes when it comes to their storytelling. But I think that there is some amazing potential here, and I'm just gonna kind of cut to the chase or kind of spoil it to the end. I think that there is this really cool spy versus spy counterintelligence sort of plot going on in this expansion, and that certain powers are manipulating others. So now that I pulled myself back from the camera a little bit, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through this scenario that involves Saurfang and this investigation as to what had happened to him, but then we're going to go through it maybe again. I'm kind of improvising here, so let's just get right to it. This whole what happened to Saurfang scenario starts with you talking to someone on the boat. They tell you, hey, you need to talk to the war chief. It's like super secret, it's super important, so go. You head off to Orgrimmar inside the war chief's house, and the place is surrounded by dark rangers, all of them named, and presumably this is for the sake of privacy. Sylvanas explains what's going on, that she's been keeping an eye on Saurfang, but all of a sudden, he escaped. She's concerned, or at least she's telling us that she's concerned, and wants us to help track her down with the help of one of her fellow Dark Rangers. You meet up with your partner, and you start looking around for clues, starting with this opened sewer grate. That appears to be Saurfang's escape route. While tracking down this trail, you run into a couple of SI7 agents and take them out. The trail leads east to Three Corners, where your partner says, hey, this is where Saurfang more than likely got through, and, well, there might have been some clues. You put on a disguise, which disguises you as this little human girl, and you start looking for clues. Based on what you find, it looks like the guards that were supposed to keep watch got super drunk, but it appears that Matthias Shaw, the leader of SI7, was somehow involved. It almost seems as if he purposefully got the guards drunk so that Saurfang could be let through, and that's one of several very interesting points that I'm going to bring up later. You get some corroborating testimony over in Lakeshire, and when you go to the inn, you find some other physical evidence. It's a letter from Matthias Shaw, presumably to the soldiers that have been guarding the area around Red Ridge, and it's an order to double the guard between Lakeshire and Burning Steps, which diverts all the guards from, the entire region just to that smaller area, which leaves the room for Saurfang to proceed east, which is exactly what happened. You find more clues, such as a disturbed web, a giant spider that presumably Saurfang fought with his bare hands, and you keep going up to Red Ridge Pass when you run into a hunter who might have some additional intelligence. So you put on the disguise once again, get a little bit more info as to which direction Saurfang went, and then you kind of get caught. The dogs that are with this hunter happen to catch your partner's scent, and then you run into an awkward moment where I myself am like, I don't want to kill dogs, dude. But then you just kill the hunter and the dogs run away, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm not morally bankrupt. Once that debacle is done, the questline is considered over, and you're told to stand down and just wait for further orders and to not engage Saurfang. So you're left alone, and then all of a sudden Zakan, or Zappy Boy, whatever you want to call him, he de-stealths and says, hey, come here. Let me tell you what's really going on. Apparently, all this time, Zakan has been working with Saurfang, so we don't know if he was involved with his breakout. But at any rate, Zakan was watching this pass to see if any Horde assassins were coming to get him, and well, here we are, I guess. But apparently Zakan trusts us, the Horde champion, to help out anyway, so he just tells us, hey, I know where Saurfang is, let's go help him out because he might be in trouble. And so off to Swamp of Sorrows we go, but we get there just in time to see it surrounded by a bunch of Forsaken. So they tell Saurfang, come out with your hands up, and so he does, but Zakan and you, the Horde champion, you also happen to take his side. So the Forsaken come at the three of you with a battle cry, kill the traitor and all who stand with him. So of course you win. The soldiers and the Dark Ranger is dead, and Saurfang is about to run off into the sunset, but not before trying to weave his own little tale of deception. He tells Lacan to stay behind in Orgrimmar. He decks you in the face, so you have a little bit of a tale of your own to tell when you get back home to Sylvanas. And he directs one last message to Sylvanas, that he will be no one's pawn. And that pretty much wraps it up. Or does it? The way I see it, I think that this thing has just begun. This build is a little bit fresh, and I admit that I haven't really even looked around on forums or anything for like any initial reactions to this scenario, but I'm pretty sure that that there is a polarized view of how to take this in, and I think that's a really good delivery on part of Blizzard, that eventually when the story goes live, that it's going to divide players once again and get everyone talking, which, again, I think this is their objective. So there are, I think, maybe 3 ways to take in this entire series of events, 3 ways to interpret it, which, again, I think it's really, really cool. It's got me super excited to talk about it. So the first perception of how this scenario goes is that it is what it is on the surface. Saurfang escapes. We track him down all the way up to Red Ridge Pass, where this Dark Ranger, Liana, that's why I didn't say her name earlier. Anyway, she tells us to stand down, but then she lies to us because she knows exactly where Saurfang is at this point, and she goes out she goes all the way out to stop him herself without telling us. Zakan appears, informs us of this, we go down to Swamp of Sorrows, we help Saurfang, and that's it. It creates this very familiar narrative, the whole MoP 2.0, Garrosh 2.0, Siege of Orgrimmar 2.0, that sort of thing. It's the old story of the war chief trying to stamp out dissent before it becomes a big thing. And then it, of course, leads to the eventual downfall of Sylvanas, and Saurfang becomes war chief, who knows, whatever. There are 2 things that I'll nitpick here towards the end, and keep in mind, I don't know if I said it earlier, but this is stuff on the PTR. Any of this stuff can change before launch, although we do have finalized voices, so chances are we are looking at a pretty final version of this questline. There could be some small changes though, so keep an eye out. Anyway, these things I'm nitpicking on. One is that the Dark Ranger does in fact lie to us, deceive us, and let us know, hey, you know what, stand down. She's just trying to hold us off while she takes care of business. At the same time, though, when we get to the scene where we're trying to help out Saurfang on that farm in Swamp of Sorrows, there's a pretty big Forsaken regiment, or pretty big Forsaken force that is there to take him out. But the thing is, it doesn't entirely look like just a hit job from Sylvanas, because if it was, then you wouldn't see a bunch of Forsaken that are surrounding this hut. You would have just seen some bombarded, plagued out area and a dead Saurfang somewhere in the middle. So I believe it when Sylvanas says very early in this quest line that she wants to bring him in alive. Otherwise, why would they call for Saurfang to come out with his hands up and surrender? So that about wraps up that particular narrative, which I find to be really boring if that's in fact what's going to happen. And it's pretty likely that's going to happen because Blizzard tends to go that route. However, there are clues that suggest something more nefarious in part of Saurfang, that he in fact could be working with the Alliance, and this is some sort of misdirection. This is based on clues that we happen to find while we're in that disguise, and we see evidence that Matthias Shaw and SI7 are involved somehow. It is pretty suspicious that Matthias Shaw shows up and manipulates the guard placements in such a way that lets Saurfang get through relatively easily. You can come to some pretty well-supported conclusions that Saurfang and Shaw are in fact working together, and I strongly believe that this was picked up on by your Dark Ranger partner. She says to Saurfang, and worse, after you abandon your people, you conspired with humans against your war chief. So that's the one thing that makes me suspect why you were told to just stand down and that she would take care of this himself, that she learned new information, that Saurfang didn't just escape, that he's working with Shaw based on this information that you two found together. So it's not like you, the Horde champion, can deny this evidence that's been presented to us. Did Saurfang get turned to the other side? It's supported, it's possible, and I have no doubt that once I really start looking at Twitter and forums and such, that is going to be one of the widely spread theories out there. But like I said, there are 3 perspectives as to how to possibly take in this scenario, and this is the most fun one, and maybe the most unlikely, but this is the most fun one, and the reason why I even made this video in the first place. And the theory is that this is a very meticulous and very brilliant plan in part of Matthias Shaw himself. It's hard to tell whether he's acting on his own or if this is something that is being masterminded by Anduin Wrynn himself. But first, let me premise this by saying that the Horde intelligence apparatus, at least as evidenced by like the Before the Storm book and other small events, that the Horde intelligence is really good. They're able to see a great many things, and I think that Shaw is trying to use that to his advantage. So here's what I think happened. Saurfang isn't, in fact, in league with the Alliance or working with the Alliance. He just happened to actually escape. Maybe with the help of Zakan, or maybe not. But I'm going to strongly suggest that at some point Zakan got involved with his escape. However, Shaw knew about this, and without telling Saurfang anything, he kind of manipulated Saurfang's path. First, by manipulating the guards into getting drunk and abandoning their post over to the east, and then issuing the orders to double the patrols between Lakeshire and Burning Steppes. Keep in mind that as far as we know, there is no activity from the Horde that's happening between Red Ridge and Burning Steppes, unless there's something that has to do with the mission table, one of those world events that are going on and it only takes place within that space. The only thing Shaw had to do with these is make his presence look obvious, whether it was his physical presence or whether it was an order written in his name. And that's it. That's all he had to do. And in effect, what that does is provide a bit of counterintelligence for the Dark Ranger, because now at this point she firmly believes that Saurfang and Shaw are in league, when in fact they might not be. Saurfang might have been none the wiser, going east past these drunken guards thinking, oh, okay, this wasn't so bad, and also seeing that, hey, there's a bunch of guards over to the south, I'm not going to go south, I'm going to keep going east. So I believe based on that Saurfang knows nothing. He has no idea what's going on, and I don't think he's the type to get that level of counterintelligence, of deception. Maybe he thinks he's on that level. After all, he was able to fool the Alliance with troop movements in the entire Darkshore War of Thorns event. But I think Shaw has a much more manipulative and grander plan, because by doing this, he is in effect pitting the Horde against each other, and in effect trying to initiate this whole MoP 2.0, Garrosh 2.0, Sylvanas versus Saurfang scenario. And all he had to do was just a little bit of manipulation, but being a little bit sloppy with putting his name out there. And if that's the case, so far, it's working perfectly, because you, the Horde champion, are complicit in that, because you helped kill a bunch of those guys. A bunch of Elite Forsaken and a Dark Ranger is dead. You and Saurfang and Zakan are involved with it. And on top of that, at the end of this questline, you lied to the War Chief. So if she finds out that little deception and that your hands are bloody, you might get in trouble. The last thing to ask here is about Saurfang. So what's next? What's his next step? We saw him run off to parts unknown, and regardless of whichever way this scenario is actually playing out, he feels like he has a target on his back. At the moment, I'm not going to speculate because there's just a bit too much going on, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of places for him to run. At least not on this planet. Good thing he's close to the Dark Portal, you know what I mean? I guess I am speculating, but yeah, that's what I think so far. He might be going to Outland. So overall, I like this scenario. I thought that this was done really cleverly, at least if it goes the way that I think it's going to. I think it's really smart. If it's going to go just the whole Garrosh 2.0 thing, then it's going to be kind of dull, but at least we're getting that sort of forward narrative going. So what do you think, folks at home and on the toilet? Is this Garrosh 2.0? Is Saurfang working in league with Matthias Shaw or Anduin Wrynn, or both? Or is this some crazy machination from Matthias Shaw to manipulate the Horde into its own civil war? Meanwhile, they don't need to lift a finger. Or do you think it's something else? Do you have your own theory to share? And I'd love to hear that and your thoughts about this scenario in a comment below. Of course, please subscribe to this channel to help support it so I can keep giving you more of this and all things Warcraft, and like the video too, that helps a bit as well. Anyway, I'll see you all next time, and until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.